Good morning and welcome to another episode of Static Feedback brought to you by CloudCannon. Today, I'm very, very excited to have with me Ben Holmes of Whiteboard the Web and of the Astro project. Astro is a super exciting SSG. I'd love to hear more about what's going on. Ben, thank you so much for joining us and welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Super excited for this.
Great. So I'd love to start with a bit of background about how you got started in web development or in software development. How did this all start for you?
Yeah, so I'm trying to go back to what we already did. For y'all that don't know, we're doing a second take here. But yeah, my start with web development was, it feels like it was a long time ago, but it was about a year ago at this point, where I first started working in e-commerce and just building out websites with Create React App and Contentful, which is pretty popular stack. But I'm sure anyone who's worked with those tools knows it's can be hard to work with at certain times. And it's also hard to get a really small bundle size that can actually have good lighthouse scores, especially when you have a bunch of like 10 different analytics bots in front of the website at the same time. So I kind of thought, I feel like these tools can be better. I'm already kind of a nerd listening to all of the podcasts out there about these tools that are floating around. So why not just go straight into the tooling space? And initially, I wasn't actually trying to, join Astro and go full deep into it. I started by just rebuilding my personal site from absolute scratch. And my challenge was I couldn't use any frameworks to do it, but I wanted to have like full-on markdown and templating, SaaS processing, single page apps with a nice like transition effect between every page.
Yep.
And I ended up building my own static site generator and then discovered 11D and slowly started moving things back out to sort of build this 11D React-D hybrid. And then that eventually turned into a project that some might know about called Slinkity, where using shortcodes, among other things, you were able to slot Svelte, Vue, React, and any other component framework into your existing 11D sites, actually using those inside of your Markdown. And nothing was type checked, and it was all very loose, but it gave people the power that they might have been looking for, where they just want a super simple static site that doesn't have any JavaScript to start, but being able to reach for those frameworks when they want to. And sure enough, Astro started emerging around the same time, and an opportunity just kind of presented itself where Astro like raised a funding round, announced that it would become a full company, and got a Twitter DM from Fred saying basically, I see what's going on with Slinkity. Do you want to do that, but for money? And I thought, well, yes, of course. So actually went through the whole like interview process and such, and then decided, yeah, I think I would be happy joining them. So that eventually led to Astro and everything after that.
That's a fantastic story. Just the fact that you can be doing what a lot of developers do, which is to start off with, I want to remake my website. And then it turns into, I'm going to make an SSG or I'm going to make a CMS. I think most people go one of those directions. Make my own CMS, roll your own. And then, it's beautiful. It just kind of shows how if you're building in public and talking about it and asking for comment, generally good things kind of happen, I think. And that's a principle that I love about writing content. I'm less of a developer, more of a content writer, where if you give enough and make it clear that you are learning along the way, generally people accept that and like it. And I think, opportunities can come your way. So how did that feel to get a DM just out of the blue from Fred? So this is Fred Schott, the creator of Astro.
Fred Schott, creator of Astro, set the scene. But yeah, it was definitely surprising. It was actually a couple DMs. At the time, Astro was kind of just an open source project that didn't sort of have anything else attached to it, and then it emerged into a really exciting startup to work for. But yeah, it was something I hadn't gotten before in a Twitter DM for sure. And Discord was also something that I was getting the hang of, because before that, I was really just an outsider watching how all this stuff sort of unfolded. I had been like a long time follower of like Cassidy Williams and Swix, who's all about the learning in public mantra that you kind of mentioned. where if you're just very public about the stuff that you're doing, worst case, smart people will come and correct you on the stuff that you're doing, which I've definitely gotten, and it's super helpful. And sometimes it'll be you actually made a cool thing and people are excited about it, which was the case with Slinkity. There's still a lot of happy users over there today. Some of them like just quietly using it in production, and I heard about it later, like, oh yeah, it was a huge success using this library on our project. And I thought, there's nothing broke, really, nothing. That was my first npm package, but okay, I'm glad it's working. So yeah,
wonderful.
it's crazy how online like the web dev tech community is, where people are just looking around for other projects for inspiration and for full-on opportunities.
Yeah, and just the fact that you can, I mean, that someone can pick up a project that you've made and you've kind of paused your work on, or shelved it for the moment, and there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't need to be constantly updated. It is working for exactly the use case that someone found it for.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great, and it's cool to hear that kind of story. Can we switch tack very briefly and talk about Whiteboard the Web, which is your kind of learning and teaching in public joined together, I think, from my perspective. Is that how you would describe it as well?
Yeah, that's definitely what I'd call it. It actually, everything kind of goes back to Slinkity in a way, because for that project, I decided instead of doing just like README updates and then sharing a link to the README on Twitter, hoping people will read it, I was like, I want it to be more engaging. So I started an update log series that was just a weekly series in front of my whiteboard, propped up on a desk chair with a Rock Band microphone from the original Nintendo Wii, if people know the one. It's actually a Logitech mic, and you can totally use it. It sounds better than even an onboard like computer mic. So I used that, I recorded a video, and some people thought, hey, this is pretty fun. People don't normally do this, even if the lighting's terrible. It's still a cool format. So off of that, I decided it's not so much like the project I was talking about, it's the presentation. So maybe I will take this approach of just explaining things in front of a whiteboard and take it as far as it's going to go. So I just went from there, did daily videos, and then pulled it back when I realized daily is just exhausting. And choosing a cadence that made sense. But yeah, I've just been doing everything I can with like really bite-sized takes on explaining concepts, because everyone's busy. No one has time for like a 20-minute explainer. Just wants something that distills into 1 minute at this point.
That's right. I think that's the strength personally of Whiteboard the Web. It's small and bite-sized. You can flip past it on your phone, learn something really quickly with a bit of entertainment value too. I'm loving the animations you're doing, by the way. That's wonderful to see. And and a bit of errant promo for this. I mentioned that whiteboards are the ideal content mechanism, content delivery mechanism, which I think is true. I mean, as a former teacher, I've used whiteboards a lot, and it's great to get a point across, to change as you're going, to rewrite, to add to it and edit. But there's something special about it, seeing it in a vertical format, which suddenly represents this page scroll, whereas I'm used to this massive horizontal thing, and I can write for days. But I think there's something quite powerful about that vertical format of a whiteboard.
Yeah, it was pretty much by accident. I mean, I just bought, to be honest, I was about to buy the horizontal one and thought, you know what, it's going to be annoying to store. I'll just get the vertical one. It's cheaper, because I was moving out to the city. And just needed something that looked a little more professional. I wanted something that could flip too, something I could like roll around. So I went with that, and then realized this emerging format of like TikToks and YouTube Shorts, and also Twitter, which is very mobile friendly. I think like half traffic is on mobile.
That's right.
It just makes sense to lean in and just crop the video to the whiteboard size, to also make it feel a little more casual. Because like if it was a big horizontal whiteboard, it'd be like, okay, this feels like an interview. I don't want to watch this. But if it's not that, it feels a little, it can take the corporateiness out of the whiteboard, because it's used in a lot of contexts. I agree. Like it's used for teaching in so many ways, and this is just one of them.
Yeah, and I was about to say that too, that it takes that meeting room, boardroom feel away from it. Yeah. Wonderful. Now, what's the feedback been like to Whiteboard the Web? How does that community change what you do, or does it change what you do?
Yeah, it's actually just been only negative feedback, but I keep doing it. Just I don't
Solid.
know. I'm
Yep,
persistent. You got to be persistent,
that's
but
right. Don't listen at all.
just don't listen. Yeah, I have had to like pull critiques like out of people, as you
Mhm.
kind of mentioned. YouTube comments are a bit more vocal about
Sure.
like actually how they feel about the content. I
Yep.
thought Twitter might be, but YouTube is actually where I got some. Where someone mentioned like, oh, I use this pop sound effect, which is just literally me going into a microphone,
Okay.
and all my sound effects are just me recording my voice.
Yep.
But this one I used like every 5 seconds between jumps, and they thought this is just getting a little tedious. I actually stopped watching because of this. So I put out a poll, and people said, yeah, that actually did kind of annoy me, but I didn't say anything. So I thought, all right, I guess I'll use different sounds, adapt your feedback to something else.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, I also pull feedback like from my mom who mentioned like your lighting can be better. Maybe add a plant in the background. That was my idea, but
Yep.
yeah, I'll get feedback from anyone and just try to adapt the medium.
Yeah.
But any other feedback has been very positive about like the way it's presented. Really, people are just asking for it to be in more places. Like before, it
Mm.
was all Twitter for a long time because I was understanding Twitter and could actually like I knew how to engage with people and get it promoted pretty well.
Mm.
YouTube is a very different beast, which I'm still actively learning. I'm actually in like Theo T3.gg, if anyone has heard of that YouTuber.
Mm.
He's been very gracious, like sort of explaining how all this algorithm stuff works. And YouTube Shorts is its own beast, but figuring that out, also experimenting with TikTok, seeing how that goes.
Mm.
I don't use TikTok much personally because it's very addictive. It's very addictive. But I'm just gonna see how like intermediate content works on that platform because it's very beginner oriented and this stuff is a
Mm.
bit more advanced, I guess,
Yeah.
which has worked really well, at least on the Twitterverse.
Yeah. I mean, it's advanced, but at the same time, it's because it's so digestible. I think that kind of lends to the success of it. You mentioned it was a couple of weeks ago, I think, that there was a lot of value in Twitch comments too. That seems something that you'd like to lean into more, as opposed to, I don't know, restarting on Mastodon or finding a new platform.
Yeah, I did put out like a little doomsday video on
Yeah.
Twitter of like, well, if everyone's worried about this thing shutting down overnight, we won't get into that drama. But it
Mm.
was like, yeah, I'll at least share that if Twitter were to disappear in some way or become like a paywalled thing, then
Yep.
YouTube and Twitch is where I want to focus. Mastodon, I've been learning about it. It's more kind of slow paced. It
Yep.
feels more like an email newsletter or a blog than it
That's
does
right.
like a very social platform.
Yep.
Yeah, if you agree. So I was like, I think, like, I guess I just know more people that are in like the YouTuber space doing longer
Mm.
form content, which is something I want to experiment with already. And for like fast paced engagement and getting quick feedback on ideas in text form, Twitch chat is super helpful at
Yeah.
this point. Having like, even if you just have like 30 concurrent viewers or 20, you can, if it's a close group of people that you know, it's just
Mm.
easy to like get everyone together that you already wanted to talk to and just get instant help on something that you're working on and also just polls and
Mm.
whatever else to know what people want to see.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good combination.
Yeah. When it comes to choosing your topics for Whiteboard the Web, is it something you want to learn? Is it something that you want to teach people, or something that you're already studying for, researching maybe for Astro or for your day job?
Yeah, it's definitely a blend of those. It started with a list of topics that I already had rolling around as
Hmm.
like, I should do a blog post, I should do a newsletter or something. And then I decided, I guess it'll be a video. And these days, it has actually been like, I use my Twitch stream to try a piece of tech because so much stuff
Hmm.
is launching all of a sudden. Like we have Solid launching a framework, we have Vue launching Nux 3, we have Next.js 13,
Yep.
all of these things that are like, separate from Astro, but I want to learn how they tick and all of the ideas that they have because they all have
Mm.
really amazing ideas. So I started using the Twitch stream as a time to try these new frameworks, take them for a spin, and then spin off some whiteboard videos based on what we learned on the
Mm.
stream. So it's very organic where I don't even have to like make things ahead of time. I can just like do the Twitch stream. I already have my notes from that, so I can just start hitting record. I don't have any scripts written for any video I've ever done. So as long as I've used the tech before and I know something about it, I can go make a video. So right now it's been kind of seat of the pants, using Twitch for ideas and then going and filming short form stuff afterwards.
That's a beautiful workflow. So you're building with other people, live, learning live, and then just recapping essentially. Yeah.
I think like cool stuff that comes out of it.
Yeah, and as soon as you start, I think as soon as anyone starts scripting everything, you lose a lot of the fun or the immediacy from it. Wonderful. That's really cool. So let's switch tack very slightly and look at we'll talk more about Astro. So we talked about how you joined the team through a message or messages from Fred. What is your role? What is your job title there? And what makes you so excited about Astro? Why Astro? Why did you make that shift?
Yeah. I mean, job title, I switch around with any like talk or question that I do. I usually say software engineer generically. I'm also a core maintainer. So I'm on the core team working on features and bug fixes, and anything else that's like promotional and marketing or developer experience stuff is on the side whenever I have ideas and want to share them. That's something that Astro's been doing, where developer experience is blended into pretty much everyone's role when they want to share stuff out. Like if you saw any of the recent Twitter activity from Astro, all the memes that were coming out, that was Nate Moore. He's just like a core maintainer that is a wizard with WebAssembly. And he's just also fire at tweets. So like, why do you need a Twitter person? We got one.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's a blend of things, but mostly core maintainer, and it's been going really well. Now that we're past the 1.0 release, we're ready to actually work on like new features that can go into the next major release, or experimental flags that people can try out soon enough. And content has been a major part of that we can totally get into. Did I answer all parts of that?
Well, I think certainly how you joined the team and the appeal, but what makes you excited personally? Like, what is it about Astro that makes you kind of tick?
Yeah, I mean, since I was already working on an open source project that was similar to Astro, I was already like kind of deep in the space. I was excited by Vite, which is a really cool bundler that's underpinning Svelte right now. Nux 3, Solid, all of these frameworks are spinning up because Vite just gives you this really nice baseline that's a way more fully featured baseline than like Rollup or Webpack, which would be somewhere down here, if you can see my hands. However you're watching this. But yeah, because Vite makes it so easy to experiment and try new stuff, it was very easy for Astro to get up and running. Well, it actually was originally built on Snowpack, which was kind of like Vite, but then we switched to Vite full time because there's so much community support for it. So joining that community, and also Astro's community, which is super sparkling over on Discord, astro.build/chat. It's hard not to get excited when everyone else around you is also excited, asking questions, giving feature requests, and all for like a framework that I wish my last company used anyways. So yeah, it's just a lot of excitement. I think it's like the perfect fit that I could have for the interest that I have right now.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So how much stress was there involved in getting to the 1.0 release? Because that was a big announcement. It was a big moment, I think, for the SSG community, especially that kind of fervor of fan attention or follower and user attention to Astro. It just seemed like a big inflection point.
It was huge, and definitely pushed us into feeling very production ready, feeling like another major contender for people to start using. And I joined right around the beta release push. So I've really been in like launch mode from the day I started until like September. And now we're finally like, okay, I guess I can go experiment with these other things. But yeah, it was, we wanted it to be a full feature release that included everything that you want as a baseline, like having some serverless support, since there's always a need for that, having image optimization, letting you use components in Markdown with MDX. So we made sure that was all there, and at least in like a reasonably usable state. I know MDX and images are still pre 1.0 as separate integrations that you can use.
Yep.
But we wanted the 1.0 to come like not more than a year and change from when Astro started. We didn't want it to become like, 5 years of wait until we finally drop the 1.0 flag. We want releases to, come when they're ready, but also not feeling like they're rushed and not feeling like they take far too long. Because there's always a balance that you need to strike there. And I think we did pretty well at like putting the 1.0 flag while it feels fully featured and having everything that you want.
Yeah, and also I didn't mention winning the Jamstack.org Innovation Award last year, beating CloudCannon out. I must say, that was a lovely moment of seeing the community kind of come together with voting, actually doing something more tangible than simply using it, but sharing that information. I think was wonderful to see. So that kind of covers the 1.0, but what's on the roadmap for 2.0? Because you have RFCs or requests for comments out currently on a range of things. You're actively soliciting those from users, but what's coming?
Yeah, so we haven't put our flag down for the 2.0 part yet.
Yep.
We're deciding like when that release would come out and what features we really want to highlight for that. But as you mentioned, there are requests for comments already out that we would want to float in some experimental state for people to try out as soon as they're ready. And content schemas is the big one. Content schemas, type-safe front matter, whatever you want to call it. But it's a project that I've been working on for the past month, so I'm really excited about it. But it's a way to use Markdown and MDX in your project in a nice type-safe way, where if you have a group of Markdown files with a bunch of front matter, you have your blog, and every blog post needs to have a title, description, a banner image, and a few other like optional publish date maybe. You should be able to actually like write a schema and say, all of my blog posts are going to have these properties. And if they don't, I want you to throw an error when I try to import it. Like, hey, this post was supposed to have a title, but you didn't write one. Go fix that.
Yeah.
And then when I use it in my code, having a bunch of TypeScript that can tell me, here's all of the posts inside of blog. Here's all of the URLs that's going to generate, like literally using like TypeScript pipe operators, if you've ever seen those. Like it's going to be first post or second post or whatever. And also type check front matter, where it's like your front matter is title, which is a string. It has publish date, which is an actual date object, not just a string that you hope is a date. All of that stuff that you can check on the fly. And being able to at least having like full flexibility in however you want to write the schema. We're using Zod for that. If anyone's excited about that library, we are too. It's kind of the thing that is built for this sort of use case, so we're leaning into it.
Right.
And all of that and more. So if anyone's curious about how that RFC is working, you can check it out on the Astro RFCs repository, among other things like per page server-side rendering, which is something I should mention. Because right now you have to opt into server-side rendering, and it's like an all or nothing switch, like your whole website becomes serverless. And some people just want the home page on static and the contact page on serverless so they can submit a form. Maybe that's a use case. If that's you, then you can like do the per page switches, which is long time coming. Really excited that we got work on that.
Yeah, and so that's the kind of incremental regeneration, I think, is quite powerful for a lot of
incremental. Yeah, that's the word I'm searching for.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. So that's we'll put the link at the bottom of the video, but the repo there is with Astro, and it's an RFC. The account, sorry, is with Astro repo RFCs.
Yes.
But how can people help out with Astro, or what can they do to request features or give feedback on current features?
Yeah. Well, our main thing, of course, is our Discord community, where we have a full-on support forum. If you don't know, Discord now allows forums with actual like tagging of what your issue is. And then we have a full group of support squad people that have just jumped up and answer all the questions, so Core doesn't have to. So if you ever have like If you have like questions while you're working, that's where you would go. We have a feedback channel where you can just share loose ideas that you want to get some early eyes on in our Discord. We're usually checking those. And also the RFCs repo that I mentioned, we have GitHub discussions over there to share features that you want to see. And if that actually becomes something you want to present as either a pull request or a fully written proposal, you can go ahead and do that. And we have an RFC call that we do every week, also on our Discord, where we go through the proposals, we talk about them, we give early feedback, and eventually move towards a consensus on whether we want to see it in the project. And a few community ideas have come through in that way. So it's very organic in how things are presented. And also to have that forum where you can see the ideas core are coming up with and offer feedback in real time. Because like content schemas looks nothing like it did 2 weeks ago. Been going through all the comments that came through. They were super helpful. They were actually like detailed critiques and started changing things for the better. So a lot of ways to get involved. The main one I'd point to is those GitHub discussions over on RFC. If you have an idea, share it over there. And we'll get feedback.
Yeah, I'd love to see an open source project that's not just using GitHub discussions too. Like having these ongoing discussions and support running in Discord is fantastic. I think it kind of enlivens the whole project, which is something that Astro does really well. Just being alive and energetic. I think as a team, as core team, and as a support team, I think Astro is incredible for that. So well done.
I think Discord helps out a lot where everyone has their own roles that they can assign to themselves. Like you can assign yourself the contributor role if you have contributed in some way. Support squad just emerges organically, like you answer a lot of questions, let's do it. And because people have a lot of pride in the roles that they have, they just get more involved, so it just feeds energy having that kind of thing.
Cool. One question that is a bit more disconnected from others that I've asked is, where do you draw the line? If you're thinking a lot about content, where do you draw the line between an SSG and a CMS? Because if you're starting to add things like throwing error flags for not having titles or certain metadata, it seems to me that there's a bit of a gray area between the two. And I ask this coming from a CMS that works with SSGs, where we try to have features that we create a feature and it works on all SSGs in the ideal situation. So it's really encouraging to see that an SSG with built-in CMS-like features is coming. But where do you see that line being drawn, or is there a line?
Yeah, I definitely feel like there is a line where some projects are working in a very Git-based flow and maybe working with more developers where writing markdown files is the best way to manage their content. And for that, it does make a lot of sense maybe to just like, don't do a separate hosted thing, don't do API calls, literally just put the markdown files next to the rest of your project and work with it there. And Astro can give you as many tools as you want in order to make sure it's very type safe and easy to use. But having worked like with e-commerce, I know that there's a lot of value when you bring in non-developers like copywriters and product managers and designers, where they want to log into that portal, they want to have the WYSIWYG, and they want to edit the content separately, and developers will query for it later. And that's where a CMS-like experience that Astro is offering here with markdown files doesn't make as much sense. You probably want like a separate headless CMS to like connect your CloudCannon account over to Astro, make sure that you can query everything effectively and generate types from there. So it just depends on who you're working with. I feel like as you move towards more non-developers having a hand in content, it makes more sense to host it elsewhere and query it in. But that line's always blurry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that kind of question always has an answer that starts with, it depends. And then you dig into these use cases. It always depends. But I think having the option to give Astro to non-technical people through a CMS or a CMS-like experience, and then to give Astro to people who, not that you need to be terribly technical to write Markdown, but you need to be familiar at least with something that's not a pure WYSIWYG.
We're actually sorry, what you were going to say?
I was just saying a lot of flexibility there. I think, and we see this in a lot of SSGs, that technical documentation writers, people who tend to like writing in Markdown as a broad stereotype, but then also product teams who may want a more WYSIWYG experience. If you can bring them together with the same SSG, I think that's a wonderful use case.
I totally agree. Yeah, I was actually chatting with someone who's working with others in like third world countries where they want to submit instruction manuals on how to like assemble certain like household goods.
Yep.
And in order to do that, they've just opened it as a very very simple SSG. Astro is a great choice because it works on slow internet. You're not loading any JavaScript. It's just getting people the info they're looking for.
Yep.
But to like submit a pull request and say, hey, I want to submit the instructions for X, you just add a markdown file to the folder they have created, and he kind of built a pseudo version of what Astro is working on with Astro content, where it would just glob all those markdown files, make sure the front matter's right, and then plop it onto the website. And that flow makes a lot of sense. Sometimes Markdown is the right level of abstraction where it's not too technical, it works well enough, and GitHub is just so easy for reviewing things that people have written and getting input from anywhere. Like headless CMS, you got a login, you have all of that. But GitHub, it's like if you just have the world as your copywriter, it does make sense to go something a little more local.
That's right. And imagine, if you will, let me just get that logo in. If
there you go.
If you have a Git-based CMS that can do both things,
exactly.
I think the world is your oyster, and your content is infinitely portable, as well as having full version control. I think is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, we've got some Git-based.
That's my plug. That's the end of my plug for CloudCannon.
No, it makes total sense. Git-based has come up a lot as like, I just want Git-based for everything. Like Netlify CMS will never die, even though it's technically not maintained. As like, I just wanted a CMS. It sounds like CloudCannon is also that.
Yeah, well, I think our main perspective has always been about freedom. So developers should have freedom to choose the framework they want, the everything they want, SSG they want, and then the editor, the content editor who may be less technical, should be able to come and say, hey, I want my buttons up here. I want my developer to be able to change all of my interface while still using the tool that they like. And it's a balance. It's always a balance of trying to find what we think is best for developers. And we have very opinionated developers on staff here. And then we have content writers who come in not knowing much about the static world, but being familiar enough with, say, a WordPress interface or something like our visual editor where you can change, you can edit on the screen on the actual web page. And it's been fascinating watching how the balance is found and the features that come out of these really tense but productive discussions. And I'm sure that's the same with Astro, with other projects that you're involved in. You start with it. You start with a good argument, and then something positive will probably come out of it.
Yeah, and it feels like a renaissance of a lot of different tools coming out where we sort of diverged on a lot of different frameworks, kind of converged onto React. Now we're diverging again into different meta frameworks, questioning how we render things, and also questioning where the content comes from. And it feels like there's headless CMSs all the time. It's just, it just feels natural that, there's another niche over here that isn't being satisfied by any of them. Let's go fill it.
That's right. It's evolution really in action, isn't it? Like you have these kind of spaces where you can branch off and grow and flourish, and then something will take over as frameworks tend to do, and then for some reason there'll be another niche that opens up. I'd love to visualize this as an evolutionary tree. It'd be really
There's a reason we didn't stop at WordPress. We would have if this wasn't this wasn't just natural.
Exactly. We are finding niches all over the place. Great. I think this has been a very wonderful and wide-ranging discussion. I want to suggest that people watching the video check out wtw.dev, that is whiteboard.dev. Check out astro.build for a really exciting SSG, and look into is it astro.build/chat for Discord?
That's it. It should give you a Discord invite.
Jump into Discord, and whether or not you just sit and watch, as I often do in Discord, and hey, whiteboards.
Had to pull in the slide.
I should have had a whiteboard right behind me. Whether or not you just sit, as I often do in Discord, and just watch this fire hose of questions and comments and fun things scroll past. It's a wonderful way to learn, or whether you actually you jump in and take part in helping Astro become bigger and better, and volunteer your time, put some comments in, and all of these requests for comments that are coming out. Or talk about your own use case. If your use case is very specific, something that no one else seems to do or want to do, I think share the use case. I think it's always a great place to start. And then people making the tools will step up, hopefully.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
always. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Just present the use case.
Yeah. And it seems weird. I see this quite often in other SSG communities. People say, well, I'm sure no one else has this problem, but I want to do something very niche and specific and odd, they think, with their site. And then almost invariably, people will pop up and say, actually, that sounds great. I'd love to do that too. And I think the more we can share our use case, the better the web can be. Anything else that you'd like to mention, Ben, or anything at all?
Anything at all.
Yeah.
That covers everything that I could. I'm all about whiteboards and rocket ships. So go find it. wtw.dev. I'm also bholmesdev everywhere. If you have a Twitter, have a YouTube, etc. But yeah, go check out Astro. Definitely just getting started over there.
Great. Well, thank you so much. CloudCannon, I know, is very excited to build on our Astro support. So you can keep an eye out for that, everyone, a little bit later this year, hopefully.
Nice.
And we're going to have chats, Ben. We'll talk a little bit off stream about CloudCannon and Astro support, but I'm really looking forward to playing around with Astro a bit more within our CMS. But thank you so much for joining us, Ben. And I was going to say Excelsior. It's not quite the right ascent. I feel I need some kind of rocket phrase, or do I just say blast off and
yeah, blasting off.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I use. Pretty Jimmy Neutron, but I like it.
Yeah, I like it. Excellent. Well, thanks, Ben. Thanks for joining us, and all the best for the future with Astro and the road towards V2. Very exciting. Yeah,
thanks. Excited to check out CloudCannon as well as we're building out a little Astro integration. Yeah. Thanks for having me, though. This is awesome.